Let's talk to Jacob Rees-Mogg now, former leader of the House of Commons. Jacob, very good morning to you. We're not quite hearing you. I don't know whether he's on mute down there. Hello, Jacob.
Hello, I can hear you loud and clear.
Yes, I know I can hear you.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can now hear you as well. Thank you very much indeed. A beautiful looking day down there, sunny Westminster. I saw you briefly at a Reform conference the other day, on Saturday, just as I was leaving. You've sort of offered your help to Nigel Farage. You say you don't want to join Reform, but you're very happy to become an advisor in some way, shape or form.
Well, it's not quite what I said. What I'm happy to do for anybody is explain from my experience as leader of the House of Commons how you actually get legislation through and how you get things done, and what the delays are, what the obstacles are to getting things through government. I found in my period in office it was almost much easier to stop things than to get things done. And a new government in 28-29 will have such problems to deal with that it will need to get things done and get them done urgently.
And what did you make of the Reform conference, what you saw of it?
Oh, it was very positive. I went with my daughter, Mary, who has actually joined Reform, rather letting the side down in some ways, but nonetheless, I'm rather proud that she's willing to make her own decisions. I think that's important. There was a very positive mood. I thought the people were very similar to the people I've met over many years at Conservative associations. They are the pillars of their local communities. They're involved in local charities, they're involved in local activities, and they are civically minded. So it's good people, enthusiastic people who want Conservative solutions, very similar to the backbone of the Tory party.
Yeah. Or what the backbone of the Tory party was, perhaps. I mean, Nadine Dorries has joined Reform with the words on Friday that basically the Tory party is dead.
I think Nadine is absolutely wonderful. I loved working with her as a minister, and she always has an ability to come up with a pithy phrase. But I think dead is overstating the position. Not in the best shape we've ever been in since we started possibly at the end of the Civil War. You can argue over the precise date. But we've recovered before, and it's really about what you believe in and what you want to get done. And in a first-past-the-post system, the key actually is uniting the right so that we all work together and not worrying about whether people belong to one party or another. It's what is in the national interest, and the national interest is getting rid of this terrible government where nothing's happening today. Westminster looks quiet because nobody can come in because the tubes are all on strike.
Well, that is the problem, isn't it? And there's lots more strikes to come by the looks of things. On the front page of the Daily Telegraph today, the unions are issuing another warning to the Prime Minister, saying that if you try and water down Angela Rayner's workers' rights bill, there'll be more hell to pay.
Well, the workers' rights bill should be renamed the Lots More Strikes bill, because that's actually what it sets out to achieve. And I hope that with Angela Rayner having left, Labour will water it down, but there'll be a lot of pressure from the left. And it'll be really interesting to see who they go for as their new deputy leader, because that'll probably be a push to the left and therefore will be further undermining Keir Starmer's authority.
Well, we just spoke to Lord Wolney, John Woodcock, former advisor to Gordon Brown's government, and he was saying that he's one of those in Labour who thinks that they should have a sort of a centrist candidate who gets picked by Downing Street. That's not how it's going to play out, because there are too many people that hate Keir Starmer, I think, around him, who are going to make sure it's somebody from the left.
All the names one has heard about are people who have a reason not to be enormously grateful to Keir Starmer. So Emily Thornberry's been mentioned, Louise Haigh, one overlooked, one fired. Neither of those would be helpful to him. Ed Miliband is very popular, extremely nice man as it happens, so I always wish him well, but very much on the Green issue, extreme hardline left-winger. So there are three candidates immediately who would not necessarily be helpful to Keir Starmer's third way style approach.
Yes, I dare say that's why he's left Ed Miliband where he is and left him in charge of net zero rather than moving him out of the way, because according to the Times this morning, they're trying to try and water down some of those net zero kind of pledges. I don't see that happening either.
All of that becomes much harder if Ed Miliband becomes deputy leader, from which position he would be the obvious challenger to Keir Starmer in any leadership contest.
Presumably as a Tory you would love it though. I mean, he might be a nice man, but he's a hopeless politician, and he was useless the last time he led the Labour Party.
Well, I'm very worried about the net zero approach. I think it's ruining the country. I mean, I think it is making us cold and poor, and we need to get rid of net zero as soon as possible. We need to use cheap sources of fuel. We need oil and gas, as much of it as we can get. We need fracking. We need the whole works so that we can make the economy thrive. The whole economy is dependent on cheap energy. Even broadcasting, look at the energy used in your broadcasting studio. Even broadcasting is dependent on cheap energy, let alone transport, distribution, manufacturing, steel. We need cheap energy. Net zero must go. And so anything that promotes that is, I think, not in the national interest.
Yeah, exactly right. Nigel Farage was interviewed on the BBC yesterday, amongst other places, and he said when he was asked about Boris Johnson perhaps coming along with Nadine Dorries as a double act, he said, I don't think that would work. Is Boris out of politics forever, do you think, or is he going to sort of emerge somewhere?
Boris Johnson remains the most charismatic figure in British politics today. I mean, Nigel's giving him a run for the money, but I still think that Boris is the most charismatic figure. I hope he has a big role to play in the future of our nation. I haven't spoken to him recently, so I can't give you any private insight into what his plans are.
But would he be welcomed back into the Tory party, do you think?
Well, if the Tory party had any sense, yes. You need people in parties who people have actually heard of. And that's one of the things about the reshuffle. Nobody's heard of any of these people, have they?
No.
I can't remember most of their names. It was Boris Johnson. Everybody knows. I stopped the next 5 people who came past. Every one of them would know who Boris Johnson is. And they'd call him Boris. They'd forget about the Johnson bit.
Right. But this is the other thing. I mean, the more, you know, it's supposed to be my job to know who's in charge of which businesses of state that we're talking about. And this morning I couldn't remember who the Department of Transport was headed by. It turns out it's Heidi Alexander. She was one of the ones that didn't get moved. But as you say, I mean, it's hard to keep up. I mean, most people don't care.
No, and it's very bad news, actually. I think one of the biggest mistakes of the reshuffle was moving Pat McFadden, because the Cabinet Office is central to the running of government. I was in the Cabinet Office for a bit, and you need people there who know how it works. And after a year, you've begun to work out what's going on. And changing people the whole time means that government doesn't actually happen properly. And there are roles that are really administratively important, where you need stability. So that type of move, I think, is very unhelpful, not to your party politics, not to your manifesto agenda, but simply to competence in government.
Keir Starmer's first tweet today was about the, not today, it was first tweet yesterday. Tens of millions of phones were successfully sounded across the country during today's emergency alert test. Did your phone go off, Jacob?
No, of course it didn't. I switched it off. It's all frightful nonsense. The problem with government warnings is that they'll be giving me a warning a moment that I'm standing in the sun and I should put sun cream on. They start well-intentioned and for major issues, and soon they warn you there'll be a gust of wind. I was actually at a memorial service yesterday for the first people who died in Operation Market Garden in the last war. And I was speaking, and the person who introduced me said I had only 5 minutes because the alarm was about to go off. Well, I finished in the scheduled time. Brief is usually good at these events. But I didn't hear any of the alarms when it ended, so I'm not sure how many of them went off. Or else they'd followed my advice and switched them off. It's very easy to do. Just go onto your iPhone, go down to notifications, scroll right down to the bottom, and toggle, I think is the word, rather unusual word, to the left, and off it goes. Brilliant.
I wouldn't normally expect you to be advising people to toggle to the left, but we shall probably best leave it there. Jacob, thank you very much indeed. Jacob Rees-Mogg, former Leader of the House of Commons, giving you the perfect tutorial in how to switch off the phone. So